Hey everyone, it's Professor John McKinney. I'm currently here at Chester Frost State Park, which is a really great state park in Tennessee, right outside the Chattanooga area, where people can fish, swim, go camping, do some hikes. It's really a great spot. But yeah, we have a great video coming up, so let's dive into it. Welcome to another week where we are going to be talking about compensation in the workplace. So this week we're going to specifically be looking at the learning objectives from Chapter 10 in the textbook, which is all about incentives and incentive pay. So with that being said, we do not have a special guest this week. So instead, I'm going to cover all of the different learning objectives. But yeah, let's dive into to the first topic.
Why might organizations choose to tie pay to performance?
So organizations, they often choose to tie someone's compensation or their pay rate based to an employee's performance. And that can either be tied to them as an individual or based on their team achievements and goals that are met, or even organizational achievements and goals that are met. So what happens is that this approach, it actually motivates employees and staff to work towards specific goals by rewarding them based on these different measurable results. And ultimately, that can increase productivity and efficiency. So when an organization, when they do decide to tie pay to performance, it also helps align the employee's behavior with the company objectives. Oftentimes, this ensures that employees are more focused on the activities that actually kind of drive the success in the specific organization. So by using performance-based pay, organizations can often better manage their compensation budgets by distributing the different rewards to employees who contribute the most to the company's performance.
When is it appropriate to have a high level of reward differentiation across employees?
Giving staff different levels of rewards is appropriate when an employee's performance varies significantly. In some roles in an organization, they actually do have a higher impact on the organization's success as opposed to other roles. So one example of when this would be appropriate to do with paying people different rewards is if you're in a situation when an individual's contributions can clearly be tracked and measured, and to see how they directly link to the business outcomes. So you often see this a lot of times when we're looking at sales positions in an organization. A lot of times sales reps, they'll receive like a lower base pay, but then they do get like high commission rates based on what they sell. And that really incentivizes them to sell more at an organization, to bring in more cash flow to that company.
What are some of the criticisms of stock options as an incentive tool?
So stock options are sometimes a really popular tool that companies use to incentivize employees. You often see this in startup organizations or large organizations where they're really trying to incentivize people to make the company as a whole do well. But even though they're very popular at different organizations, they do face several criticisms. So one major issue is that the stock option, it may not always be aligned with an individual's performance. And what I mean by that is that stock prices, that they can be influenced by external factors that are unrelated to a specific employee's or even like a team's efforts. Additionally, stock options, they can be encouraged to do excessive risk taking. So an employee, they may be motivated to make rash decisions that could temporarily boost stock prices without necessarily focusing on the long-term objectives and stability of the organization. Another criticism that we hear specifically related to this incentive tool is that the potential value, right, of the stock options, it's uncertain at times, right? Oftentimes, stock prices increase or they decline. And when they decline, it can actually reduce the effectiveness as a motivator for that staff member. So a lot of times what you see is while, stock options are common. They're popular at times. You do see a lot of times where employees they might want a more immediate or kind of like a predictable reward.
How does pay for performance improve employee motivation and performance?
Pay for performance, it improves motivation. And the way that it does this is that it provides employees with a tangible link to be able to see how their efforts affect the business, and then they're rewarded for it. So when an employee sees that their performance and what they're doing at work that it directly affects their compensation, they're more likely to be motivated and to perform at higher levels. This approach it encourages employees to kind of like set and achieve higher goals. It enhances engagement in the organization, and ultimately it can lead to sustained improvements in productivity. So a lot of times, when we're thinking about this, pay for performance, it can actually foster a culture of accountability, where employees actually take ownership of their work and strive for continuous improvement.
What is the golden rule of pay for performance plans?
So the golden rule of pay for performance plans is to ensure that the rewards are linked as closely as possible to the employee's contributions. For pay for performance plans to be effective, employees need to first understand how their actions impact the rewards, and they also need to feel that the compensation they receive is fair and that it's directly related to the level of performance that they're giving to the organization. So when an employee perceives, right, that there's a strong connection between their efforts and the rewards that they receive, the plan is more likely to drive the desired behaviors and outcomes that we're looking for.
What is the difference between errors of commission and errors of omission in incentive pay and their impact on organizations?
Errors of commission, they occur when an employee is rewarded for undeserved performance or behaviors that do not necessarily align with the organizational's goals. This can potentially lead to an unpredictable or even harmful actions. Now, on the other hand, errors of omission happen when an employee is not fully rewarded for deserving performance that they've done. So, what this can do is it actually undermines the motivation and it can lead to disengagement. Both types of these errors, they can impact an organization negatively by distorting the intended effects of an incentivized pay with reducing the effectiveness of the reward system. And ultimately, it can potentially cause morale issues among employees. And I've personally seen this at one of the organizations I worked with, where at the end of the year we gave everyone a bonus, and what we learned was that the owners wanted to give the bonus to everyone, even the people that didn't do well behaviors, right, or they didn't do their job correctly. And so what we saw was when this was happening, that it was actually kind of like causing morale issues among the employees because someone was doing something wrong and they were getting paid well. So with that, it can backfire having these incentive plans if you don't do it correctly. So I hope that you were able to take something out of learning about incentive pay, and you know it can really help organizations, right? It can, as an employee, if you're not working in HR, right, it can incentivize you to do better. If you do work in HR and you're looking for ways to be able to strategically support organizational goals, being able to put an incentive plan in place to further motivate people, it can really do great things as long as it's done correctly. So I hope that you've learned something, at least some basics around the incentives in this week's video, but also the chapter that you're supposed to be reading in the text. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.